Time now for us to answer some viewers who have been pondering what exactly to buy in terms of a BMW Sport Tourer. Should they go for the S1000 XR or the R1250 RS? Well, first, let me just say that this is a very nice problem with which to be faced. And may I also say that those Sport Tourers may not have the outright sexiness of a superbike or the rugged appeal of an adventure bike, they often combine the best of both worlds to offer what is, in my humble opinion, the best kind of all-rounder you can buy for the road. Now, to help me discuss the pros and cons of this choice and to arrive at a well thought out conclusion, I'm going to ask another journalist to join this conversation. A rider whose skills I've always admired, and whose ability to cut through all the marketing PR spin ensures he always gets down to the nitty-gritty and arrives at a decision you know you can trust. So, please welcome me, so that I can talk with myself about what things we should consider when deciding between these two very capable bikes. Well, as you know, Matt, I have ridden both of these bikes quite extensively within the last couple of years, and since their last major updates, in fact, and I have to say that both impressed me enormously. But I think naturally I gravitate to one more than the other. I'm going to guess that that's the XR that you prefer, and so since you're my guest, I'm going to let you argue the case for that bike while I will make the argument for the RS. Okay, that works for me. Let me start out by saying that obviously we have an interesting decision to make between a big twin-cylinder engine or a slightly smaller capacity inline four. But at the same time, although we're discussing two bikes within the BMW range, we are presented with another choice that confronts potential sport touring riders these days, and that's to do with riding position, which in turn bleeds into the whole look of the bike. With the XR, both this S1000 version and BMW's F900 twin-cylinder XR, you're getting a touring bike for the road with a sporting edge, obviously, that comes in a package that, if you squint just a little, could easily be mistaken for an adventure bike. Look outside of BMW and you can point at bikes like Kawasaki's Versys, Triumph's Tiger Sport, maybe even Yamaha's Tracer to a certain extent, to see a similar pattern. Actually, if you consider the mag-wheeled versions of quite a few supposed adventure bikes like Ducati's Multis, even BMW's GS's or Triumph's adventure bikes, then you're going to see how close this new breed of sport tourer really is to the adventure bike, because without the spoked wheels, a smaller front wheel too occasionally, and sometimes with a little less suspension travel, you have a definite crossover between genuinely dual purpose bikes and bikes like the XR that are pure road-only models styled like adventure bikes. Yeah, it's a good point, and I suppose this stems from manufacturers like BMW wanting to lend some of the rugged good looks of the adventure bike to the road bike market, but also to share what is a really very comfortable all-day kind of riding position with a sport touring road bike. Yeah, because before this latest development, Sport Tour has always had, like the RS still has, a more wristy, leant over, less legroom kind of vibe, like a slightly unfurled, less committed sport bike riding position. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just a different way of going about solving the same problem, except it's an ergonomic layout that leans towards the sport riding end of the scale, while the XR's is more concerned with the touring part of the equation. Yeah, the way the RS is doing things is a more traditional sport touring riding position, and you see it in two of the biggest stars of the sport touring world at the moment, Kawasaki's Ninja 1000 SX and Suzuki's new 1000cc GT, actually, and KTM Super Duke GT as well, thinking about it. The benefit is that when you find yourself in the mood, on the perfect road, then this position makes more sense because it pitches you over the front end a little bit more, and it sort of just puts you in the sport riding frame of mind to really take charge of your bike and, I don't know, wring its neck a bit. I know what you mean. And even though I'm a huge XR fan, I have to say that it's at times like that when I actually think its high revving 4-cylinder engine comes into its own that it can start to feel just a little remote. And that's down to the upright riding position. And if you've bought one with the new seat that I first came across in 2020, I think it was, it's sort of it's like a bucket seat effect. Holds you in position, but it's got quite high sides and unpleasant edges to it as well. And then you can't even slide around in the seat at all to get into any kind of sport riding flow of things. That's something worth remembering, actually. Make sure you specify a standard traditional seat, if you like, with your XR. Unless, of course, you've already tried the new version and like it, then fair enough. Yeah, I would second that. I would also add that I find the traditional non-bucket seat better over long distances for the same reason, because you can shift around a bit and get a bit of a fidget on and therefore find a more comfortable position. Wind protection is good on the XR and adjustable, though only between two positions, I think. And obviously the models we ride are always loaded with all the extras. So there's heated grips, which are a must. And if you can afford the heated seat, then go for that as well. Unless you know you won't ever be riding in winter, in which case, save the money. If you're going to be buying the XR second hand, then I would add that you need to try and save your penny so that you can afford the 2020 model or later, ideally. Not a massive amount changed in the 2020 update, but the most noticeable thing for me was that it got rid of most of that annoying vibration that could strike in the mid-range on the models before that. Kind of got you in through the bars in particular. Same for the S1000R naked bike as well, which is what the XR is under the skin, at least in terms of its engine tune. It's still not the absolute creamiest 4-cylinder bike in the world, but it's definitely noticeably better than it was. Yeah, I'd agree with that, but I would also add that it can sound pretty gravelly, mechanical, nuts and bolts in a tumble dryer type of thing, especially first thing in the morning. I often gave it the side eye as I warmed it up for the first ride of the day because it sounds so rough, like something has or is about to go very wrong. The big Boxer Twin, on the other hand, is quiet, very definitely smooth, and pretty much free of any vibration, and also possessed of so much torque that it can make the XR feel rather gutless by comparison. By default, you think the 165 horsepower XR is going to be much the faster bike, but the way that the RS lets you get at all that torque from so low in the rev range means that in most real world situations, when you don't have some kind of demented race face on, then the RS is actually the quicker bike. It's certainly up to, say, what, 85% effort, much easier to proceed in, what should we call it, a very brisk manner. Yeah, gear changes are more important on the XR because you have to keep that motor spinning. But thankfully it has a wonderful two-way quick shifter, so that's not a hardship. Same with the RS. The gear changes they're good, especially at speed, though I will admit at lower RPM during, you know, day-to-day urban type riding, the changes can be pretty clunky. But that's the same on all of BMW's twins, even their parallel twin F models. While we're talking about the engines though, let me just finish by saying that over the years, I've never really been a huge fan of the Boxer twins. I think being a younger journalist working for a sport bike magazine all those years ago, they were always, I don't know, an older man's engine. And usually in a type of bike, whether that be an early GS or a big tourer, or even something like that early horrible cruiser they had, the bikes themselves just didn't appeal to me. But over the past decade or so, the engine has been hugely improved, which you'd expect over time, of course, but I think it has really stepped up, particularly in this latest shift cam incarnation in terms of performance, so that 143 newton meters and 136 horsepower is a serious dollop of performance. It still has that same character it always did, still rocks to the side when you give it a blip of the throttle, but now it has the kind of get up and go that really suits the sport touring role. Great for effortless smashing of huge distances and genuinely entertaining when you're in the mood to tame a mountain pass. Electronics? The screens are the best in the business and they're the same on both bikes. And I know on the XR with the adaptive suspension, if you spec everything, it's just amazing. Expensive, but amazing. And on any bike with touring pretensions, having the ability to adjust preload and damping for luggage loads or a pillion is a real tangible benefit. Yeah, it's pretty much exactly the same with the RS, if memory serves, even to the extent of automatic preload adjustment. So if someone gets on the back or with luggage, it makes the bike as level as it should be without you having to fiddle with it. But it has to be said, obviously, when you max out all these options, it does bump up the cost quite significantly. But if you're lucky enough to have the wherewithal to afford it without having to sell any of your kids, then I suppose it's a no-brainer. Same with the luggage, actually. The panniers and brackets, they can be pretty eye-wateringly expensive to those unaware of the cost of these luggage systems these days. But they're easy to get on and off. They're waterproof, lockable. They don't unsettle the bikes at higher speeds, unlike some of the stuff you and I have bungeed onto our bikes over the years when you don't have proper luggage. Yeah, they generally make carrying luggage as hassle-free as you want when you're in holiday mode, and to a large degree it's taking the hassle out of carrying stuff that you're paying for. And I will add that I think the RS, its luggage offers a fraction more space, but I could be wrong. My memory isn't what it once was. You're telling me. I'm looking at you and you seem familiar, but I'll be honest, I can't remember your name. Very funny, Bob. What's not so funny for you or the XR is the one area that's a clear and unequivocal victory for the RS, and that's the small matter of my shaft drive. So yeah, it's so good that you forget about it entirely, and there's no better compliment than that. It's as unobtrusive as a chain, and yet it never needs adjusting or oiling. It never dirties the rear wheel. It's a must-have on a touring bike. So, how do you respond, sir? By changing the subject. Onto looks. Aesthetics, if you're posh, which you're not. XR, for me, every single time. Yeah, I might give you that one. But the RS is far from ugly, though it's hard to make a bike with a wide engine configuration like this look anything other than just a bit cumbersome. This latest version is definitely as good looking as it's ever been though, especially its face. I'm a fan of these adventure style road bikes, so yeah, I'm going to give you that one. And will you give me then the overall victory? I'm sticking with my XR. Which one would you take home with you? It's actually a lot closer call than I first thought, because I've really grown to enjoy the latest shift cam boxer engine. Yeah, I still think I'd take the XR though, and I'll add that if I was to go the boxer engine route, and there are at least 143 very good reasons to do exactly that, then I'd take the R1250R. Yes, I know it's basically an identical bike to the RS, but I just enjoy riding it that bit more, and I think it looks a load better. Bit of a fly screen and the luggage system for the touring element, and I'd be very happy indeed. But ultimately, just as this handsome fella has done, I would choose the XR. For me, it's that bit more comfortable over distance, slightly sweeter handling, bit more of a livelier kind of sporting experience when you do go bonkers, and I think it looks a lot better as well. You know what? I don't care what they say about you. Sometimes you really do talk some sense. Thanks, I think.